Alright guys, welcome back to the start of another project. So we're finally getting back to doing some furniture pieces. This one is going to be a pretty quick and simple one, but it's something I've wanted to do for a little while now. So last year sometime I built a blanket chest and it has actually been a pretty big hit on my channel. I think that one video alone has gained like 300 some subscribers. So to all of you who watched that video and decided to subscribe, thank you and welcome. But anyway, since building that blanket chest, I've wanted to build another one that is slightly smaller. So I actually have that same blanket chest that I made in that video listed up on my website as a made-to-order item. And I think that the cheapest one, which is some wood combination or some non-wood combination. Anyway, the cheapest one on there is like $1,200. I haven't actually sold one yet. Not surprising because it's the only piece of furniture I have on the catalog on my website, which is not very good. If you want to be a furniture maker and you want to have a catalog for people to buy from, you need to actually have more than one piece on there. So for this project, we're going to be making another blanket chest, but it's going to be a completely different design style. So the other one was a lot of frame and panel, whereas this one we're going to be dealing with solid panels and dovetails. And this one is going to be much smaller. So it's going to be a little bit more of a cost-effective option, but will still be overall a really cool and interesting blanket chest. So the biggest thing here is that it's just a smaller piece and has a completely different design style compared to the bigger one. So this is one of those kind of weird half-day videos where I've been starting doing lately. So I'm actually doing this. So this video is actually taking place over 2 days because this morning I finished off the chessboard, did all that stuff. So now I'm going to get these glued up and then ready to go tomorrow when we'll actually smash out the majority of the work on this chest. Okay, so 2.5 hours later of using that drum sander, and our panels are all nicely flattened and sanded up to about 220 grit. We still have some pencil marks and that on here that I'm going to go through and finish this off with the random orbital sander because this is about as good as it's going to get off of the drum sander. So before we continue on with this project, I just want to quickly mention a channel that I found while I was just browsing on YouTube Shorts last night. And the channel is Hatch Made It. So there'll be a link to his channel in the card up above and in the description of this video. I highly recommend you guys go check it out. I just found him last night. He's been doing a lot of shorts lately. He just posted a video today while I'm recording this video that's doing some ASMR, some hand tool work. It's actually some pretty cool stuff, and I've looked back at some of his other videos. He's got some pretty interesting stuff. He's a super small channel, so I just want to help him out. So if you guys want to go check him out, subscribe, you know, all that good stuff, you know, definitely highly recommend it. He's got some really interesting stuff on there, and so yeah, like I said, I highly recommend going and checking it out. So anyway, back into the project here. Now that we've got all of our panels flattened and ready to go, they're all mostly sanded up, now we can actually start prepping for the joinery side of things. So the last things we need to do to these panels is we need to obviously cut them to length, get them down, size, and all that, so I know which ones are my specific pieces. So this is going to make up my two side panels, and I believe I've got a front, then I've got the lid of the box, then the bottom one should be either the front or the back, either one of those. So we need to cut these all to their final length. Then after that, we'll go back in and cut them down to their final widths, because when I did the glue up, I made sure to leave these slightly oversized, because the one mistake that I've made quite a few times when doing my glue ups is I cut two pieces to the exact size. So in this case, I want a 16-inch panel, so I would have cut my pieces both to exactly 8 inches. But after doing that glue up, you might find that you're not perfectly 16 inches on both sides. There might be a slight taper, they might be slightly over 16 inches, and like I said, this is a mistake I've made time and time again. So the important thing is anytime you do a glue up, there's always some potential for, you know, a little bit of a gap, a little bit of space, you know, things might not be absolutely precisionally perfect. And for something like this chest, I need all 4 sides to be the exact same widths in order to reference properly off of the dovetail jig. So now that we have the glue up done, I know for sure that both of these edges are perfectly straight, so I can reference one of them against the table saw fence, and all I gotta do is just do a trimming pass to get down to my perfect 16-inch width on all these panels, then we'll be good to go. So it's a super simple process, but it's one of those things that is so vitally important to do anytime you do a glue up. One thing I do want to say with the drum sander really quickly though, is that the one machine in my shop that I am eager to upgrade already is the drum sander. Even though the drum sander is one of my newest machines, what I'm starting to realize about the drum sander and its specific capabilities is the drum sander should always be the biggest machine in your shop. You know, the biggest, it should be able to take in the widest amount of materials. So your jointer, it can be pretty small. You know, I only have a 6-inch jointer. It does most of what I need. And anything else like these pieces that we are doing on this project, I can just use the router method. It's not that big of a deal. Then onto the planer. The planer is about twice as wide as the jointer. So the planer can either do a whole bunch of small pieces at once, or it can do one 13-inch panel. Either way, that's just fine. Then this drum sander is a 16-inch drum sander. So these panels being just over 16 inches right now, I still had to do 2 passes on them to make sure that they actually worked because of the whole open end thing. I can't actually, there's no way for me to actually align these panels right under where the actual sandpaper is. So the way that I imagine my shop in probably a year's time is I'd probably still have the 6-inch jointer, the 13-inch planer, but I would want to get like a 30 or 40-inch industrial drum sander or belt sander, you know, something that is a big machine, because being able to sand panels like this or frames or anything like that is honestly, it's one of the most important things in my woodworking now. You know, ever since I got this machine, even though, like I've talked about before, this machine is not perfect, it has massively changed the way that I consider woodworking. You know, making a panel like this is so much easier because I can just go through and finish it in this machine. Okay, so this is why I deal with frame and panel rather than these stupid solid panels. I hate working with solid panels because they're just a pain in the butt. So I started with the track saw because I thought that would be the easiest way to deal with this. These panels are a little bit on the large side, so taking them over to the table saw and all that, a little bit finicky. But on the first ones that I did, so the side panels, I started by squaring up one end, and then I wanted to cut the first side panel to length. I screwed up on the measurement, that was my bad. But I noticed that the amount of human error involved in setting up that cut, aligning the track to that mark that I made on the board, the cut came out completely off of the measurement that I needed. So I decided to just square up one end on the longer boards and try and finish everything off on the table saw. But as I'm checking it right now, I'm realizing that the table saw didn't do any better. Even though for these long panels, I was referencing against the fence, which was mostly locked in place. It's right on the end, so it doesn't lock super well, but I thought it was gonna be sturdy enough. We're about a 1/16th, maybe an 1/8 of an inch off in length over the length of these two. So dealing with these long panels is it's just annoying. I don't like doing it. It's one of those things that is just a very annoying thing to do, and I haven't done it enough to know how to do all this stuff, accurately the first time. So I'm gonna have to kind of fudge my measurements a little bit. That's kind of what I've done this whole project so far. Basically nothing here is the same as what I initially planned, which is not always a good thing. So what I'm gonna try doing next is I'm gonna try using the track saw and buddying up these two panels. So I'm gonna get them perfectly squared up to each other. I'm gonna find some way to hold them in that perfectly squared up position, and then I'm going to square off one end, square off the other end, and then that should make both of our panels the exact same length. Because with this project, these panels need to be the exact same length. If we have as much difference as there is currently between them, that's gonna completely skew the inside of the chest here, and obviously things like our base, which needs to be squared up, and the tray that's gonna go on the inside needs to be square. All this stuff, if the outside case is not square, nothing else is gonna line up nicely. So we need to make sure we take the time to square things up as best as I can. Okay, so on one hand, I really love cutting dovetails with the router because in under an hour, I have this full chest done. It's, ready for glue up. The one thing I will mention is I forgot to finish the inside before I did that, so we're gonna have to very lightly finish the inside faces of our pin boards. Because we gotta be very delicate there so we don't screw anything up. But anyway, the reason I also kind of hate using the router is because of spots like this corner here. I honestly don't know why it happens, but every once in a while the router will just grab a bit of grain and just destroy it. And it only ever happens on the pin board. So I think what I need to do is get a 5/16, I believe that's the size of the bit, a spiral 5/16 bit, and I think that will solve a lot of the issues, because the problem is with the straight bit that comes with the jig is it's a very violent bit. Anytime you're using a straight bit in a router, they generally don't do very well. So luckily with these big breakouts, all I have to do is just find the chunks, which I have set beside me here. So I'll just go back in and fill those small pieces where they blew out with some super glue. Then we'll clean them up really quickly with a chisel or a plane. So my goal is to hopefully get this glued up today. I've got a little while longer in the shop and I might come back out after supper to just kind of get this thing finished off if I don't already have it glued up. Okay, so we got the glue completed here, and that actually went pretty flawlessly. So there's not really any issues. You can see I added in these spacer pieces because with the pipe clamps, they can't go around the slightly protruding dovetails anyway. So you just put these simple pieces in here, a little bit of tuck tape on them so you don't actually glue them to the case. And it really is that easy to just use the pipe clamps to pull everything together. Now, like I said, the glue up went together super easily, not really any issue. It came out square on the first try, which is very rare, so I got very lucky with that. But yeah, I'm super happy with it. One thing that I always mention whenever I do a dovetail glue up is never check the inside of your cabinet, whatever, with like a square or anything like that, because it's usually not going to show a square. Because right now, going through all my corners with my little square, I can very easily see that none of these corners are anywhere near a square. Because what's happening is, because I'm using the F-clamps on the side here, they're kind of bowing in the panel, just enough to make it so that it's not square, but it's pulling the joint together, and so it's all good. So when we take those clamps off, these panels will go back to being nice and straight and all that, being the way that they're supposed to be, and you'll have a nice square glue up. The best way to check is always to check on the diagonals. So use a tape measure, use a stick, whatever you have, check between the diagonals that they are the exact same length, and as long as you have the exact same length on both diagonals, you know that your thing is going to be square, whether it's a drawer or a box or this thing, whatever it is, that's the best way to check. And so that's gonna do it for today, guys. I'm basically out of time in the shop. I came out after summer for a little while just so I could get this glue up done today, because that means tomorrow we can actually move on with this project rather than just doing a glue up for a whole day, which is kind of a waste of time. And so tomorrow we can really just kind of do everything. So we can start working on the lid, we can start working on the base, the inner area, the tray. This was the one section we just had to kind of get done before we can start piling everything else on top of it. So we'll get the case all cleaned up, then we'll just be able to start on basically whatever I want to start on at that point. So I do hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.